Hello Year 4, I hope you're okay. In today's science lesson, it's going to be broken up into two parts. So the first part of this lesson is going to be focusing on the results from our tooth decay experiment, and the second part of this lesson is going to be beginning to look at the digestive system. To start with, we have our results from our tooth decay experiment, so I'm sure lots of you are really excited to see the finished results. And I would like to just take a moment with you just for you to have a think of what you can see here. So pause the video now and have a bit of a think. What can you notice about how these eggs have changed? Okay, we're just going to talk about them briefly. So the egg in water we can see has not changed at all. The egg has stayed exactly the same shape, the same colour, it hasn't got any cracks in it. Whereas the egg in cola has started to get some brown speckled spots on them. The egg in coffee has completely changed. The egg in coffee has changed colour completely, that it is an actual full shade of brown. It's got a brown shell now as opposed to this light beige shell. However, the coffee with toothpaste, when we rub toothpaste on it, it hasn't actually changed. It's really, really similar, if not identical, to the egg in water. Now, the egg in vinegar, unfortunately, when I put the egg on the spoon, it smashed, it cracked, but this was because my egg in vinegar, as I explained on the Zoom session yesterday, had expanded so much that I couldn't physically get it out my glass without cracking it. But the egg with vinegar was really, really interesting because if I tried to bounce the egg or drop it on the floor, for example, it would bounce. That's because of the acid in the vinegar. It made the egg, you can see the egg shell, it isn't an actual shell anymore. It's more of this substance that is flimsy. And you can see the yolk here with similarly, because I cracked it, I was able to actually see the inside and it looks a bit like jelly. So the egg in vinegar had turned rubbery. Now, we need to make some we made our predictions, we need to make some conclusions. So you have this sheet to answer. So first of all, it says, was your prediction correct? And I can see that my prediction was correct because fizzy drinks and coffee had the worst effect on our teeth. We then need to start to fill in the sentence gaps. So I found that something had the most damaging effect on the eggs and therefore has the most damaging effect on our teeth. So which egg out of all of these changed the most? Well, it was coffee. The eggs in the something changed and became something. So you need to think which eggs changed. Well, we know cola and coffee changed. How did they change? What happened? Whereas the egg that was kept in something did not change. So that is the egg that was kept in water did not change. I also found that the egg in vinegar, so what happened to the egg in vinegar? Well, it became rubbery. It was able to bounce on the floor if you tried. Mark, you might have had a go at bouncing on the floor, or Jonah, if you've got the egg in vinegar, you can have a go at bouncing this on the floor. Maybe you could send us a video if you're doing that too. So from this experiment, I have learned that something and something could potentially cause tooth decay if they are both drank too often. So which two drinks changed the egg the most? Coffee and cola, whilst something has proven to be healthy for our teeth. What was healthy? Water. However, despite coffee showing to have bad effects on our teeth, the something in toothpaste, which liquid was in toothpaste, did not change much, which suggests that maybe if we brush our teeth after having coffee, it won't have that much of a damaging impact. So that is the first part of today's lesson. So if you just pause the video where you are now and complete the following sheet, please. Off you go. Okay, now in today's lesson, we are going to be focusing and learning about how the digestive system works. And by the end of this session, you will be able to name all the different parts of the digestive system. You will be able to identify the parts and begin to consider the functions, and you will be able to construct the digestive system. Now, to start with, we have got our retrieval questions. So if you just pause the video here and underneath your learning for today on your piece of paper and your subheading retrieval, can you answer the following two retrieval questions, please? Okay, what are the 4 different types of teeth? Can you remember? So the 4 at the front are my incisors, then I've got 2 canines, 3 premolars and some molars at the back there too. What is the difference between a herbivore, a carnivore, and an omnivore? We know. What do herbivores eat? Plants. Carnivores eat meat, and omnivores eat meat and plants. Great remembering. So, today we are looking at the digestive system. Now, when humans eat, we digest food. And we also have a digestive system that allows us to do this. What do you think digest and digestive system means? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, how did you do? So, the definition for the word digest is to break down the food so it can be used by the body. So in our body, we have lots of different organs that do lots of different things, including breaking down the food and choosing the most important parts for the body to keep that is going to help us and give us energy. When we're looking at the digestive system, we are talking about that system of organs that are in our body that get the food in and out of the body, making sure that we use the food that we need to keep the body healthy. So digest, meaning break down the food. The digestive system is the actual organs, the group of organs that help to do this. And that's exactly what we're going to be learning about today. Now, on your resource pack for today's session, which is going to be underneath the Year 4 Science Resources Pack 2, so you've already done 1, this is number 2, you have got a man that looks like this. He's got nothing apart from something near his mouth here. What I would like you to do, having no knowledge or maybe some knowledge so far about the digestive system parts, or maybe you haven't done work on this in a while, can you have a go at drawing and labelling the body parts that you think are part of the digestive system? Now you might be thinking, Miss Newman, I have no idea. That's okay, because this is going to show you how much you've learned by the end of today's lesson. Now, to help you, I want you to think, how do humans digest food? How do we break that food down? How does food travel through the body? And what parts of the body are involved? But it's not just the ones on the outside you can see. Do you think our eyes are part of the digestive system? How about our toes? No, it's all the things that are inside our body that might be part or are part of the digestive system. Now, I would like you to pause the video and have a go at labelling where in our body you think that we are going to use to help us digest food and what are parts of the digestive system. So pause the video here, go to your resources and do that now, please. Okay, how did you do? Was that quite tricky? Don't worry if it was tricky, because we are now going to learn all about the digestive system. So here I have the exact same diagram, but this time it's labelled. Now these are all the parts of the digestive system, and that's a lot. But we're not going to learn about the functions of each of the parts today. We are just going to learn about the parts and a really basic process of how the digestive system works. Now, I would like you to go back to your original diagram that you have had a go at labelling and tick any body parts that were correct and put a dot next to any that were incorrect. Were there any obvious body parts that you missed out? Or, looking at this diagram, are you surprised by any of the body parts or organs that are used in the digestive system? Had you heard of any of them before? Or were any of them brand new to you? Pause the video and have a think. Now, please don't worry if you didn't have anything written down, because that is just going to make you even more proud when you get to the end of the lesson and you see how much you've learned. So please don't worry. So we are going to have a look in some more detail now, and we are going to talk through the digestive system and how humans digest food. And we are going to start here. Where is this? Point to it on your body. That's right, it's our mouth. Now, we have something called a salivary gland. Now, when we smell food and it smells really nice, this triggers our salivary gland to produce saliva, which helps us to swallow. And when we do eventually eat the food, our teeth, we know our teeth have certain functions that break down the food either by tearing it or ripping it apart. And that happens in our mouth. And as we are eating the food, we are biting our food, it's getting smaller and smaller. And then our tongue pushes that food that is broken down into tiny pieces through a pipe. Now this pipe is called the esophagus. Can you say that? Fantastic. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Esophagus. Now the esophagus is a pipe that connects the mouth to the stomach. So all of this food that's been broken down in our mouth travels down this pipe and into the stomach. Now, the stomach has lots and lots of muscles in it, and the stomach is one of our organs that helps to mix all of the food together. Now, the stomach has some things called acid and enzymes that help to mix the food together too. Now, don't worry too much if you haven't heard of that before, but the main thing that we need to start to understand is that when our food has been broken down into our mouth, it goes into our stomach and it gets mixed further. And then the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas all work together to break down this food further. Now, if we look at our liver, which is the brown organ here, the liver produces a fluid called bile. Have you heard of that before? Don't worry if not. Bile is a fluid that helps to digest the food too, and it's used as part of the digestive system. And the bile absorbs the fat from the foods we eat. And then the bile that the liver produces is stored in the gallbladder, ready to use at another time. In the gallbladder then releases the bile that the liver has produced into an organ called the duodenum, okay? Now, the duodenum is the small part of the first part of the small intestine. Now, before we talk about the duodenum, we want to talk about the pancreas, because the pancreas is another organ. The pancreas helps to break down other parts of the food, so fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Now, all of this process of going on and mixing the foods is the body's way of keeping the good things that are really good for us and pumping those things back into the blood to give our body the energy we need, because we need energy from food. But then it also helps to get rid of the bad things which will be flushed later on. Okay, so we're now at the pancreas, and the pancreas breaks down these fats, these proteins, these carbs, and then they release them into the duodenum. Now, in the duodenum, we know that this is the first part of the small intestine. And all of this food that's been broken down by the bile, like the bile and the enzymes, are now moving through the small intestine. Now, by now, we don't have much of the food left over, because most of the food now has either been pumped back into the blood to help our body and give it the energy it needs, or it's been broken down into tiny pieces, tiny pieces. Now, in the small intestine, any food that's left over or broken from this whole process passes through the large intestine, so this dark green organ, and then it gets to the large intestine, where it absorbs any water from the leftover food. Now, if the water has then been absorbed from any leftover food, the food that is now left over after that forms stool. Do you know what stool is? Stool is basically like anything that comes out of our bottom, okay? Like the feces. So then we get to our rectum. The rectum then tells the brain that we now need the toilet, our digestive system is over, and then we release the stool out of our anus, okay? So that is how the digestive system works. Now, please don't worry if you don't remember the functions of today, but your task today is to either choose task 1, this one, or task 2. Task 1 is to see if you can use these keywords to label the parts of the digestive system in the correct place. Task 2 is to not only label them in the correct place, but also cut and stick our organs in the right places in our body too. Now, if you need to go back and re-watch the part where I'm explaining the parts of the digestive system, that's completely fine. You've got a plenary here today, and I would like you to go back to the image that you labelled at the start of today's lesson. What have you learnt today, and can you add any more parts of the digestive system to it now? Pause the video and have a think. Super listening today, Year 4. We will be next week having a look in closer detail about the digestive system. Today's lesson was getting you to really think what the digestive system was and the process that the body takes to really digest food, and making sure that we get the healthy things from our food to stay in our body, giving us that energy, and all the bad stuff goes out through the rectum and the anus. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you in our next lesson. Bye, Year 4.